Make my own rules, play my own games. I don't give a what you
Hi,
say.
I'm Ray.
And I'm Steph,
And this is the SciComm Hotline.
where we gossip about all the cringe and exciting ways science is communicated in real life.
So let's bring the drama.
Wild and free.
Hi, Ray.
Hi, Stephanie. There was split second that I forgot your name.
You had to enunciate the whole thing. Stephanie.
It's
You
Stephanie.
use my real maiden, like my real
I
name.
use how your dad calls you. It's Stephanie.
Hey, Stefan.
Yeah. What's your middle name?
I don't have a middle name.
Did we ever talk about that?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Why don't you have a middle name?
I just don't. I just don't. I don't know what to tell you.
I don't know what to tell you, man. I just don't.
They just decided not to. That's it. They're like, nothing rhymes with Stephanie, so let's just keep it that
Is
way.
that something that
I
is
know.
normal in your culture?
No, because I think my sister technically has a middle name. My brother has a middle name. My dad has a middle name. I don't know if my mom has a middle name, but my dad and my brother have the same name. My sister's name is like a
Why are you?
shortened version of my mom's name. And then they're like, we want an American name. Let's just call her Stephanie. Helps with the assimilation.
Yeah, not ethnic enough. It's
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, because there's another creator whose name is Estefany, like, she spells it with an E
Uh-huh.
and then an F, but it's just like, mine's just Stephanie.
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 If I didn't see your last name or you and just read like Stephanie
Yeah,
is a
yeah,
PBS producer, I'm like, Stephanie is definitely very
white.
blonde.
Yeah. No, 100%, but it's so funny, most of the Stephanies that I meet have been, like, other Latinas, so I
Right?
don't know why, yeah, so
Yeah.
it's just been yeah.
Right, right. This is
Anyways.
like Iranians who choose names that like very easily, like if they, especially if they're planning to come to the US and stuff, or if they live here, there's a lot of like names that is like easy to also say it in English. So like my friend, her son's name is Ryan, but it like in
Mm,
English you can call it like Ryan, right?
Ryan,
So we
nice.
also have like a lot of those names that can be Englishified.
Yeah, yeah. Super cute. Well, anyways, us rambling in the beginning makes me think of Ray and I decided to apply for the SciComm Excellence award. And we submitted SciComm Hotline, knowing that was like we don't have a lot of views, like we're not doing that much impact, but we're just still gonna put our name in the running. And so I'm like looking for like episodes to select. And it's like, oh my God, we just talk so much bullshit at the beginning that it's just like if someone from like the jurors was just like listening to this, they're like, what the fuck like this is not
Where is this
SciComm.
going? This is
Yeah.
like, oh,
When do I get to the meat and the potatoes? Like, thankfully, in, like, the descriptions, it's just, like, add the time codes of, like, where you want them to listen, and so
right.
we can, like, just jump into what's important, but it's just funny, like, listening to, like, each one. It's just us.
Yeah.
Most of our intros are the same of just
Right.
us being existential
Right.
during this unprecedented times that we continue to live in.
Mhm, mhm.
We're crying, and then we get into the SciComm.
Oh, like, each episode, you're like, "Should I add this? I feel like that might just, like, not be very appropriate," and then you look at your, like, every single episode has something inappropriate.
100%. We're exclusively explicit, but for the 5 listeners that are our best friends listening, you guys enjoy it,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah,
we're just gonna keep with it.
yeah, or it just counts as, even if you don't enjoy it, counts as a good deed, it'll take you to heaven, so
Yeah, yeah.
hopefully you're religious. If not.
Exactly. Alright, let's jump into it. Ray, what are you hating on?
So Stephanie, I know like we usually like hate on all these different things that is external to us, but
Hmm.
today I want to hate on you.
Son of a bitch. Why are you gonna hate on me?
Our
What did I
friend
do?
Stephanie is going to London to
Ugh.
film, to produce in the London, in the United of the Kingdoms of the Queen. The King?
I don't know. Um, I guess I like for you
Jealous
to
at
hate on
all.
that,
Not jealous at all.
but for sure, but also, like, with that comes, like, I've been so anxious about it just because of, like I know I have, like, privilege being, like, a US citizen, but there's just so much chaos that I'm just, like, scared to be traveling overseas. Like, what if I just get something happens to me, whatever, like, I just feel like I just keep thinking worst case scenario. I'm trying not to, I wanna be, like, excited about it, but I just can't help how uncertain and anxiety-ridden I'm filled with because of just, like, our the state of our world.
Mhm.
But I guess the good news is that if everything goes well, yeah, right now one of my clients is an ed tech company based in India, and they're wanting to produce, like, world-class lectures for
Mhm.
physics, and so I'm going to Cambridge University to set up to help to yeah, so there's, I guess, a very famous I don't know famous, but very popular, like, quantum physicist. I think his name is David Tong not his I don't think. His
Mhm.
name is David Tong. I don't know if he is a quantum physicist, but the
Mhm.
lecture or the lesson that we're capturing is on quantum physics.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I for this whole time since, like, maybe February, I've been having to, like, logistically organize an international shoot.
Wow, like, right.
And so that's been pretty interesting having to, like London is, like, 6 hours ahead, India is, like, 15 hours ahead, and then for all of us to try to, like, work together and, like, shovel money and, like, get
Mhm.
everything in order has been definitely a learning experience. I'm not excited for my taxes next year. But this has been it's been fun, and so I'm looking forward to it, and I hope it goes well. But, yeah, I'm gonna be working, like, every single day for, like, 5 or 6 hours to record
Yeah.
22 lectures.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, it's 22 lectures within 2 weeks. I'll be there the first week, so it'll be, like, the first half of those, but still, it's gonna be pretty intense. So I'm
Right.
not there to sightsee or anything.
Right. I'm sorry, I didn't know the fear part of it, like the worries that you had, which makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Everything's gonna be fine.
Everything's gonna be fine.
Everything's gonna be
Everything's
fine.
gonna be fine. Do one of those things. I have like an email that I send to Michael when I go to like trips. It's like, here's a lawyer, here's the people you need to call, here's the newspapers you need to contact.
I was literally thinking about that. I was just like, should I just make sure that I leave my husband with like my passwords or anything like that, like just in
You
case
need to
something
like leave
happens?
a copy for sure, like your
Yeah.
information, honestly, like birth certificate, things that you need to
Yeah.
just, yeah, put it out there. But
Uh,
also, what a cool experience. And also, like, for all the potential, like, hiring people, like, international, like, organizing of, like, these kind of, like, productions and stuff is such an undertaking. So, look at
I
that.
hope that's the case because I got rejected from 2 other jobs last week, so it's just kind of like,
I wouldn't
you
take,
know
yeah, at this point, I just don't take it personally anymore. I'm like,
I know, I know,
what is this? What is this market? So,
I know, I know, I know.
yeah. What are
But
you hating on?
I had to think, I had to think, I don't yeah.
Filled with
I was
love.
hate I know, yeah, exactly. I was hating on taxes, but maybe I should just segue quickly into our main topic of discussion.
Do it.
And so a couple weeks ago, Ray and I found ourselves hating on all of our SciComm friends that got to interview Ryan Gosling for Project Hail Mary. So there's a creator kind of like in my ecosystem, Dr. Becky, who is an Oxford professor. And then I saw Scientific America create a reel, and I was like, "Dang," like, they're both interviewing Ryan Gosling, and Dr. Becky had, like, cute little, like, flirty banter with Ryan Gosling and everything. Because Ryan Gosling's like, "Oh, I'm not a physicist, I don't know anything," but she's making sure that he's at ease. I was like, "No, of course, I da da da," like, there was just, like there was something in the air, so, like, all of my SciComm friends that are like, we have a Discord channel, and all of them are just like, "Oh my god," I'm so jealous. And I felt that because Ray and I was just like, "How the hell do we get our names, like, into the ecosystem to, like, interview freaking Ryan Gosling?" But after that, seeing that, that's when Ray and I said, "Okay, let's do an episode about Project Hail Mary." Um, and yeah, we'll see what works. There's different things that we can kind of branch into, but for the most part, it kind of ties into Ray's research, and then I just have, like, some questions that we can just kind of, like, gossip about.
Ray's research and Stephanie's eye for good SciComm and SciComm strategy in the ecosystem. Plus, your own work was also like focused on like characters and narratives about science. So I feel like a lot of that is going to show up. But I think a lot of like right now content might be around like the science of Hail Mary, and I think we're gonna be focusing more on the science communication side of Hail Mary. And by the way, I just learned that I've been spelling Mary wrong this whole time.
What were you doing, like, Merry?
Marrry, just like not Mary.
Well, that's because I think it's more those 2 are correct, like, Marry is for, like, weddings,
Okay.
and then Merry is, like, jolly, like you're
Right,
merry,
right,
like
but not
skipping in
like
a
yeah, like
field.
not Mother Mary.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, like, like, Hail Mary is just, like,
Mhm.
a formal name.
Right, 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 correct.
That's funny, that's funny. That's okay, whatever.
So tell me, Steph, what's your first thoughts when you
Okay.
watched it? What you came out? What you thought?
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. I guess we'll talk about our experience in the theater. So mostly it was just like, okay, we're committing to. Ray already watched it when I was proposing pitching the idea for her to do an episode about it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to watch it with my husband. I'm in a small town. I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting it to be like packed out. It
Mhm,
was a packed out theater, and especially in a town I guess this is, like, my projection of just, like, we're in a small, like, country town, like, people aren't gonna care about science, but at the same time, this is also have a university nearby, so there's a lot of students and a lot of families there, so I was like, "Oh, this is really cool." But overall, like, I really enjoyed it. It was really cute. I wasn't expecting it to be, like, cute and heartwarming. I did me and my husband did leave the theater being like I feel like there was, like, some plot holes where it's just like, "How did they do this and how did they do that?" So when I tried, like, recapping with, like, other friends, I think that my biggest pet peeve was just like, "Well, it's explained in the book. If you read the book, like, it explained this." And I'm like, "Well, I didn't read the book. I'm not going" like,
right.
now I have it on my audiobook as I'm gonna listen to it later, but I like, why should I have to read the book to understand what the plot holes were for this movie?
Mhm, mhm,
So those are
right.
first impressions. Those are first impressions.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, for sure, I've been really missing going to the theater and watching something that I actually, like, come out and be like, "Whoa, that was actually, like, really good." I haven't experienced that. Honestly, I think since, like, Everything Everywhere All at Once, that was, like, the one that,
Oh,
like
that was a good movie to watch in theater.
and with that when I came out, I was like, "Okay, there was a good narrative, good connection to characters." The science was, like, not that much about like, to me, like, I didn't like, when they were talking about, like, the science, I was like, "Ooh," it was, like, just, like, went over my head, but I was like, "It doesn't matter, like, that's not the point of it. The point is, like, this friendship and connection and him as a scientist."
Mhm,
Um
mhm,
and
mhm.
just yeah, it was just so heartwarming, so many emotions, and I think mentally, I could not spoilers, this episode is filled with spoilers, by the way.
Yes, yes.
I think mentally, I could have just not handled another, like, tragic thing. Like, if any of those
Mhm.
characters would have died, I would have been like, No, I cannot. I'm not in the right headspace." And I think the society is not in that headspace. I think we need hope and friendship and all of that. So I was just, like, filled with a lot of good feelings.
Yeah, I think that was interesting to, like, notice about the movie in terms of, like, it wasn't like an apocalyptic movie.
Yeah.
Like, I was doing a quick little, refresher and, like, watching some, like, interviews with the creator and the director. Okay, so there's an interview that the interview with Ryan Gloss the interview with Ryan
Buying goods.
okay. The interview with Ryan Gosling in Scientific America. Ryan Gosling mentioned that, like, he didn't want this movie to feel like it was an escapism. He wanted this movie to feel like there's a problem that this person was, encountered with, and they are capable of figuring it out.
Mhm.
And so it leaves more of, like, a message of, like, hope rather than just, like, the despair that we can feel of just like, "Oh, the sun is gonna be freaking destroyed in
Mhm.
30 years, and we don't even know how to solve it, and so we're just gonna live in this apocalyptic, you know,
Yeah.
dungeon beneath the earth," or some shit like that.
And I think that's probably like maybe like this is like one of the first like science communication lessons that shows up where so there's this researcher Robin Nabi and she talks about like narratives emotional flow. So kind of like if you have a story that is fear based, which has been the way we have been doing communicating science, right? It's so scary, it paralyzes people. People start denying it. It's kind of like the really scary lungs on like the like cigarette packets. where they thought like, "Oh, we're
Mhm.
gonna put that on the package, and people are gonna be scared, and they're gonna, like, fear of this is what's gonna happen to my lungs, so I'm not gonna do it." But we know what happened is that your brain, this is, like, so disgusting and scary, it just, like, blocks it out. So you see it wouldn't even do anything. So that was literally a useless effect. And in cases of, like, climate change and stuff, it just, like, paralyzes people where they're like, "This is so scary. I can't there's nothing I could do." Then there is the case for hope. If you have there is this thing they call it, I think opioids. If something seems too hopeful and you're like, "I guess we have figured it out. I don't think there's anything I need to do. I think we're good." Right? So there's again nothing you would do. But there's something about like figuring out how you can have a little bit of fear where you show something is happening, something bad could be happening, right? Where like you see that this is like the sun is being blocked. There is a problem that is happening. And it becomes worse and worse. So like we know that while he's gone, people are going to die. It's not going to
Mhm.
miraculously be
Mhm.
solved. The consequences are still there, right? But at the end, there's the hope, and the hope resolves it. And even in the last scene, when you see her on the ship, you see she's like in a frozen sea. So you know there have already been consequences. And that all matches also the definition of hope, where in order for you to experience hope, you need two things. One is you need to see that there's a path in the future that you can take, that there's a path in the future that resolves a problem, and that you can take that path. You're capable of taking that path. So it kind of like seeing a scientist having the ability to solve problems is that where the efficacy comes in. And I feel like it contains the narrative flow and the definition of hope and all of that into one thing. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, the directors were mentioning in terms of, like, how they wanted, like, the tone or the style of the movie to be, knowing that, like, the author is praised on, like, how well he, like, wrote this book or whatever. And the author made sure that, like, the root or, like, maybe, like, the theme that's anchoring the book is, like, having empathy in order to have, like, the connection with this alien creature.
Mhm.
But then the directors also were wanting they said they wanted this to be competency porn, like, they like competency porn. I've never heard of that before, but I'm like but they explained it as just, like, they like to watch people do shit well. So,
Right.
like, when we watch action movies where there's, like, a heist and there's, like, a group, like Ocean's 11 where there's, like,
Mhm.
11 different people that are trying to do this and everyone has their role or whatever. Like, we see Ryan Gosling maybe wakes up from her freaking coma and somehow remembers how to do his astrophysics
Right.
or biochemistry stuff or whatever. But it was really interesting in terms of like, okay, when we thinking about like characters and narratives in this, and as like a normal like people human viewer, it really comes down to like the actor giving us like the disbelief, like giving us like the benefit, like are they able to really yeah, like are they able to like really transport us into the story? So I'm not just
Mhm.
seeing Ryan Gosling play a scientist. Is it just like, "Oh, no, I believe, this scientist is, like, believable in the story," and I'm, like, in the story.
Mhm.
Kinda sorry, I'm all over the place. So I'm thinking of, like, I think
Yeah.
Huh?
This is very helpful because it's I'm like, "Oh, because you listened to the interview, I didn't." And I'm like, "Oh, I see why I thought a certain thing that I'm gonna tell you later." But
Okay, okay.
this is helping me
Well,
understand my
I
thoughts.
guess I have 2 things kind of floating in my mind right now. One was just kind of like, what I like about what you mentioned earlier in terms of, like, hope, you need, like, a path forward, and you need to feel capable of doing it. So it makes sense with, like, the competency porn that, like, the directors were trying to achieve of just, like, having a character that knows how to do their job well, and that's why he was selected to do this in what feels like an impossible mission. He has a capability of doing it, but his character arc is that he doesn't feel that he's capable of it, and then eventually he's capable of it once he befriends this alien
Right.
rock, um, which I love. He's so cute. There
Wait,
is but at the same time, as, like, just, like, as a viewer of the movie, it's like, okay, I still kinda see Ryan Gosling, so it's, like, not fully believable, and also there's moments where, like, you were saying, like, sometimes the science just kind of flew over your head. Like, the point of the
mhm.
movie wasn't to explain the science, it
Yeah.
was mostly about the friendship and, like, yeah, again, having hope to, like, solve this problem with this alien species. But sometimes I'm just like, "This is so fucking stupid that he's just, like, floating in space." It's just like, da 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 da. Oh, oh, I
Right.
can this is because of this, like I'm like I can barely, like well, it's probably just me and my incapability of being a scientist. That's why I'm a science communicator and not a scientist anymore. But
Stop,
like,
no.
but yeah, some of it I'm just like, oh, like okay, I guess I'll just play into it for the sake of watching the movie and
Right,
staying.
right, right, right. Yeah, yeah. It's so interesting that so you're telling me the strategic intent behind the story when you said like we want them to be seen as like it's about a story of empathy, it's about like this competence porn and all of that, which I'm like, oh, how beautiful when you think strategically and you watch something and you get exactly the outcome that someone had intended. Because the scene, they were in the tunnel, and the first thing they do is, like, they try to, like, talk, they get scared, this is an
Mhm,
alien, and then they start
mhm,
by imitating each other.
mhm,
And
mhm,
I just
mhm.
thought I was like, "Oh my god," like, imitation, I think it's like imitation is like flattery, but it's like one of the first ways, whether you watch that, whether you watch Arrival, in E.T., there is this moment where the alien and the person imitate each other, like, touching fingers or, like, saying the same thing. It's kinda like when you, like, do body language stuff and you're like when you're talking to someone, like, try to, like, mimic their tone or their, like, body language because that helps, like, build trust and everything. So it's that before you solve this problem, before you try to communicate anything, like you need to build trust. And the way they start building trust is by sitting there, understanding each other's language, mimicking each other, telling each other about who they are. And I'm like, oh my God, like SciComm 101. And later, one of the ways that you also build trust is competency, right? So it's kind of like, I know this, you know that. So they exchange all of this like information. So you see the process of like how the two of them are building trust together, initially not by their competency, but by empathy and all of that. And to the audience, I think for an audience to also connect to a character, you need to have like that element of vulnerability, which you see
Yes.
as he keeps doubting himself, as you were saying, like whether it's doubting his competency. But the part like I connected with the most, because I think the whole time I was kind of like, but he sacrificed himself. I, on the
Mm,
other hand, I ran away from my country. And like the
mm,
guilt of all of that, like especially right now, it's like very big. And I think coming to an end to be like, oh no, he kind of also wanted to run away. He like
mhm.
he's not
He physically ran away that they had to tackle him, they didn't give him a choice, you
right,
know?
right, exactly, exactly. So, like, in my head watching him, I don't feel like, "Oh, he's better than me, I could never be like him." I'm like, "Oh, he felt the same fear as I did when I ran away." You know what I mean? So suddenly
Mm,
it changed how I felt. If I would have left the theater and he was the hero from the beginning, I would have had a very different relationship with that character.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting going back a little bit to, like, what you were mentioning earlier in your response was that, like, there's a in order to build trust was, like, mimicking and whatnot, but at the same time, even before that, like, the trust was built through just curiosity.
Mhm.
Because it's like this huge ass freaking like light looking spaceship just comes up to the side of me. And then Ryan Gosling tries to like push his jet, like run away a little bit. That thing catches up. But also that's like, but also like plays into like the director and the writer or producer, whatever, the creators of this movie of just like again, the anchor of it is like empathy and curiosity. Because like if this was Star Wars, they're gonna, like yeah, exactly. It's gonna go straight into moments of violence, moments of just like taking over, moments of like seize. But at the core of these core of the story is just like two lonely characters who are homesick. They find each other in like the most craziest place ever. And then yeah, those moments of like vulnerability, but also curiosity and just like and bravery. Oh, I don't know why that's making me cry right now. I didn't cry during the movie at all. I was, like, genuinely
I mean,
laughing.
yeah, right.
But, like, I don't know, tying it together, I'm just like
Beautiful observation, Steph, with like the two
I
spaces
know.
being curious.
Yeah, but then, like, there was a moment where, like, Rocky was like, "Oh, what is this?" Like, Rocky tells Ryan Gosling that he's like, "No, you're brave." And, like, that was something that, like, Ryan himself, like, didn't even, like, believe. He thought the astronauts themselves were, like, brave, and he again, like, he ran away and didn't want to put himself in the situation because he didn't feel brave, but, like, at the end of the day, just, like, caring for another alien species and that species caring for him, like, gave him the confidence to, like, be brave and to, like, continue to push to, like, solve this problem.
Can I you made me wanna overshare.
Please overshare.
I do think, like, good art and literature are things that, like, you take, like, way out of context
Yeah.
and put it in places in your life that are truly, like, healing. Because I forgot this part, and what an amazing time, Steph, for you to remind me that. Because the day oh god, we're gonna go to can I go to politics?
I know.
The
It's
day
okay.
Yeah, the day Trump said, like, he's gonna, like, wipe out an entire civilization, I was just devastated, but also my defense mechanisms are weird, and I haven't cried in so long, in, like, honestly, weeks. And I was like, I know there's nothing wrong with me, I know it's just, like, my weird defense mechanism. And I went to practice kendo because I was like, "This is good for me." So I put my armor on, I had my shinai and everything, and we were, like, sparring. And there was this, like, guy who was, like, he's very young, much taller than me, so I know I'm gonna get hit. So I would, like, in during sparring, I would just, like, go to, like, the side and run around and just ditch and everything. And the sensei pausing between the sparrings, I was like, "You guys need to stop being scared of getting hurt, getting hit. You need to learn to take a hit. We're full on in
Mm.
armor, right? You
Mhm,
need to
mhm.
stand there and take a hit and learn how to hit back and stuff." And he said that, and I just, like, broke. Like, I felt these weeks of me not crying, like, tears started just, like, in my eyes, and I was like, "Oh, no," because in my head, I was like, "Oh god, I keep running away. I ran away from my country, and my friends are back there getting hit, and I didn't know how to get hit, and I just kept running, and I'm just here continuing to run away from things because 'cause I'm constantly scared." And I really controlled myself to not cry and everything, and finished the sparring, I got hit a bunch of times, I just, like, stood there, was like, get hit, you gotta learn how to get hit." Um, and it was, like, very I, like, immediately, like, get ready, once I'm done, run out in the street, and I just cry, like, loud cry on the escalator, loud cry, like, in the train, and in my head, I'm like, this feeling of guilt, and I talked to our mutual friend, Sonia Lee, um and she kinda, like, tells me, is like, "No, you're brave. You were just, like, you're hurt by these times that were hard, and you had to leave because it was difficult. But you're brave. That's not who you are." And it kinda helped. And I think I kinda, like, went ups and downs and back and forth with that idea of, like, leaving a place or running away from danger is not cowardice. And I'm still struggling, I still don't have an answer, but I think just being in these situations, whether it's Kendall, whether it's watching Project Hail Mary and these characters that, like, I love and who are both brave and both want to run away, it just feels kinda like healing,
Mm,
you know?
mhm. Thanks for sharing that.
Mhm.
I know. It's like the immigrant story when you, like sometimes those, like, first generation children, we kinda take for granted, like, the journeys it takes, like, for our parents to, like, immigrate to a new country. But it's just like, yeah, it just takes a level of bravery to, like, enter into a space that is, like, no longer your home, in a country that's, like, a different language than what you've grown up with, and culturally completely different, and just to, like, set roots in it and just, like, try to make yourself, like, flourish in the field. Um, yeah, this takes a level of bravery,
Thanks
and
for
I
saying the story because it kinda helped. The audiences are like, we talked about this? Can we go back to the psycho?"
no, but again, like, this is why we entered into the SciComm Excellence Award because we ourselves always show a level of vulnerability to build and have connections with you, our
Exactly,
audience. But
exactly.
if not, it's just parasocial relationship because Ray and I just love each other.
Exactly.
But
Okay,
yeah, I think
yeah, yeah.
I know. I think one thing, another thing that kind of like what kind of took me out of the movie, thinking of just, like, moments of, like, disbelief or trying to suspend my whatever, I forgot what the saying is. Um, and again, like, what we're experiencing right now is, like, there's just war all around us. And so then to see a movie where they are like, "Oh, we have this, like, impending doom that's going to affect our entire world. Let's bring all the best minds together to, like, figure this out." And then we have the US government putting money into science to figure it out. I'm like, "Okay, like, that's actually gonna happen." You know, like, part of me was just kind of like that's where it's just like, okay, like, I think that was just me internally like, not being able to, like, fully put myself in it because I just have, like, that reservation and anger of just, like, yes, this movie is about hope, but I just frustrates me that it's not how human nature
Mhm.
really is, you
Yeah.
know? That we don't always go towards empathy first. We always go towards violence and dominance
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
you know
Um, I find it sad and hilarious that it's like it's not like the science that you're like, "Oh, this is, like, really breaking my belief moment." It's like, no, it's like humanity wanting something better is the part that is hard for me to believe.
Yeah, exactly, and then putting funding and money towards it, like,
Right.
hopefully, like, this would like, in a best case scenario, like, this is something that would actually happen, but another thing that I left, like, the theater thinking about is, have you ever visited the space station in Florida?
No, I've never been in Florida. I would like to.
Uh, oh, man, well, you should come visit.
Oh, well.
Um, but yeah, so I grew up in Florida, and so, like, one of our field trips is always going to the Kennedy Space Center, but it's, like, a far distant memory, but now that my husband is really he's a space fanatic, one of our one of the Christmases past when we go home to visit, he wanted to go visit the Kennedy Space Center, and so there was a moment where, you know, there's different sections of the place, and one of them was to look at the space like, the shuttle that helped build the International Space Station.
Mhm.
And, dude, I, like well, again, this is another a side story from the side story.
Please.
Was that, like, I grew up in Florida, and I remember, like, playing in my backyard and, like, literally hearing, like, the sonic boom as, like, the space shuttle was,
Wow.
like, launching off. So, like, you'll hear your, like, your screen, like, my glass porch doors, like,
Mhm.
"Go, go, go, go," you know, like so I, like, have that memory of it, but I never and I remember, like, maybe one day we all stood outside to, like, watch, like, the launch or whatever, but it's still never, like I was never, like, a space kid, a space fanatic, and even now, what kind of frustrates me with, like, SciComm content is just, like, how hot space is. I don't know why. That's just, like, my personal pet peeve. But anyways, back to the story was that so we're there's a several series of movies before you get to enter into the museum where you get to see the actual space shuttle. And that's is like a quick recap of, like, how they went about building the international or yeah, building the shuttle. And they made it very, like, Hollywood of just, like, "What if we did this and, like, the shuttle can return?" And then it shows, like, the evolution of, like, the engineers or whatever the engineers, like, building the space shuttle and then launching it or whatever. Oh, pause for a moment. I'm mixing up my stories. I meant there's aside from the space station, the shuttle for the space station, that was super eye-opening and like, "Whoa, that was so cool," of just like once the movies was done playing, the screen turns transparent and then you get to see like the space shuttle like the shuttle that
Oh.
built the International Space Station, and that was like so cool.
Oh,
But
that's
that wasn't
so cool. Uh-huh.
and so but I never made the connection that like that was that shuttle that built International Space Station. But that wasn't my main story. I totally messed up, and what I wanted to talk about I was actually talking about I wanted to remember about the Apollo missions to
Okay,
space,
okay.
because there's a movie also that plays before you enter into the museum that goes through the history. But that one was just showing of just, like, the amount of effort and the government push to be, like, the first people in space, at least for America, because they didn't want the Soviet Union to, like, do it first,
To
and that's
be
what
on the
pushed
moon.
yeah, to go to the moon first, and so that pushed the Apollo missions to get to the moon first. But it's like And have you ever saw the other movie with Scarlett Johansson and Channing Tatum where they were like, oh, it's like Fly Me to the Moon or something like that, but it's like a Hollywood version of just like the amount of marketing that went into to get the country on board to fund NASA, to fund the Apollo missions.
The SciComm
Um,
movie?
and it's kinda low key, I don't know if it is SciComm, but it's more of that I think it feeds more into like, "Oh, we went to the moon was fake." So they're actually building a set just in case the mission failed, that they would film the actual set, but the spoiler of the movie is that, like, the Apollo mission actually
Right,
happened, and so they
right,
actually captured the actual thing.
right.
But yeah, but there was a moment of just like, "Oh, like, it really takes" bear with me, people. I always think of, like, 12 different things at the same time. My personal qualms is how sometimes SciComm I think of SciComm in terms of, like, education, like, science education. I think of it in that puritanical sense. But SciComm still also falls into, like, marketing. So that's, like, the amount of marketing it takes to, like, get people to notice the thing or to be aware of this or to have a call to action or whatever. And so the amount of marketing it took to push the Apollo mission, I made me think of, oh, was the release of Project Hail Mary part of that initiative to get people excited for the the Artemis the Artemis mission that just happened
Mhm.
literally, it released that weekend, and then the following week was the Artemis mission.
Right, 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 right. I
So
mean,
sorry, that was all over the
no,
place.
I think that is a very legit question, and it could have been. I think the
Mhm.
question is that wrong? Do you
Mm.
what are your feelings about it? Do you feel like it
Yeah, I guess there's no wrong it's not wrong,
Mhm,
but it is, like I talked to another of our friends that has changed their perspective about SciComm and how, like, he feels a lot of, like, the SciComm work that we do is just propaganda for but he thinks of propaganda in terms of, like, how we kind of bend the truth in order for people to, like, visit these different, like, science or whatever, these different things. We kind of, like, bend the truth, and so that's where,
mhm,
like, he will deem it as, like, propaganda. So it's like, "Oh, I'm making a video for this nonprofit, this science conservation nonprofit, and it's to get people to visit this museum." It's just as, like, he would classify that as, like, propaganda.
okay,
So for and so, like, we do label or at least in my mind, I'm, like, labeling the amount of push it took to do the Apollo missions as, like, a little bit of propaganda, but not in a negative sense. It's more of just, like, the efforts it took to do that. But I don't think it's wrong because again, it just kinda goes back but I don't know, it's hard. It's hard because I think of just, like I always think of, like, American excellence, and that's what leads to and that's the battle I feel like some people were having also in the comments when this Artemis mission was launching of just, like, this duality of just, like, we're bombing this country
mhm,
for American excellence, but at the same time, another version of American excellence is us sending people to the moon
right,
in order to find more information about
yeah,
it.
well,
And
okay,
then we have this, like, pop culture movie that's, like, giving us hope and empathy in order to
mhm,
be excited about space exploration, even though it's being defunded.
yeah, yeah,
And then yeah, I guess, like, was Project Hail Mary used as a way to, like, validate the spending it takes for these space
mhm,
missions to justify to
right,
get people excited about space exploration, to
right.
justify funding and the continuation of this thing.
Yeah, I'm all good thoughts. I'm definitely very biased. Like, listen, like when I was in high school, I was such a space fanatic. I We didn't have like the round pixel thingies that you put on your bags that like all kids have today.
Mm, mhm.
Um, we didn't have that in Iran, so I would
The
literally
Tamagotchis?
no, it's like a round, like laminated thing that you put on, and it's like a logo or like a cute
Oh,
thing.
okay.
So,
Mhm.
I remember, like, I literally, like, printed a NASA logo, cut it out round, put tape on it, put a safety pin behind it, and, like, would hang it on my backpack and go to school with it. Like, that's how fanatic of, like, a space fan I was. I spent, like, hours on the rooftop, like, observing and stuff like that. Um So I am definitely biased in this thing. So
Mhm.
like the moment I hear like when you're like propaganda, but all of that is real, and I'm like, okay, Ray, like take a moment. I think propaganda is like such a heavy term for
Yeah.
this because I think to your point, there is some like there is like bending of the truth and making claims that are not real that make something propaganda to get someone to do that. And I think especially something like Project Hail Mary, first of all, it's fiction, so
Yeah.
it's not claiming any reality.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, yes, create content that actually does justify space exploration because guess what? If we have like, navigation, if we have mammograms, I think was came out of making the Hubble Space Telescope, like the technology used in that was then used for mammograms, right? Ballpoint pen, Velcro, these are all like space related discoveries. And and like one of our friends, like Anika Harris, is doing like research on like heart muscles and how they like act in space. And like she would probably design things that would go in space. I don't know if she's already doing it, like if it's in space or not, but at some point that will go there and it would have implications for health. So, if anything, I would advocate for yes, let's have people on board with these stuff, especially knowing how extremely little of our tax money goes to space exploration. It's like, it's minuscule. It's like ridiculous compared to like defense or something like that, right? Um, so in that sense, I would be like, yeah, I think SciComm in some ways like marketing for science. And I think if we think of this kind of marketing as ethical marketing, it would actually help it because like a brand might be like, we're just not going to say all the horrible things we've done. And you're like, well, you know what happens when people find out that you have done it? You completely lose that trust, right? It's kind of like when you're like, as science has to either admit that we had the Tuskegee experiment and we had a lot of like horrible things happen. If you don't acknowledge it because you're like, that's, I'm not gonna do that for my marketing, then it's just gonna backfire. It's just bad marketing to lie or to do propaganda or to not talk about certain things. So I think this was just like throwing up a lot of words about like,
No, this was super helpful because I think one, I think I you know how when everyone learns a new term and then they just like overuse it without actually understanding it? I feel like that's a moment for me of just like, okay, I need to revisit what it really means to like have propaganda. I
mm,
feel like I just heard it somewhere else and I'm just like using it just because I think I'm like annotating or I'm using that as a replacement for just kind of like the American excellence and the push for things kinda stuff. Um, but I think that is helpful to think about, like, what you provided, like, totally makes sense, and I agree with that, and I relate to that because, yeah, like, in previous episodes too, when we think when I have frustrations with science, is like how we put so much money in defense, and with putting money in defense also brings up a lot of, like, innovation that is helpful for us.
exactly.
And so it's just like, okay, like, why like, like, you're
Mhm.
asking, like, is it a bad thing that we're, like, using Project Hail Mary to, like, get people on board to, like, want to care about science, want to care about science and be and see themselves as, like, science people or science interested people through a science fiction
Mhm.
or a science fiction movie rather than just, like or the alter not or, but, like, another alternative that we see is just, like, the money that's being pushed into defense at the cost of lives, which is not always, like, related to, like, being a science person, but it's more of just, like, defense technology that gets integrated into our daily
Yeah,
lives.
yeah. No, yeah, I'm with you. It's like all very complicated, especially when you have things like defense that become so
Mhm,
confusing. And with propaganda,
mhm,
honestly, I don't know exactly the definition, but I think there has to be an element of you intentionally and intentionally, I say is also important, I think, twisting the truth or lying to make someone do something. It's kind of like with misinformation and disinformation. Like misinformation is not intentional. When my dad or a family member or I send someone that is wrong, I'm not doing propaganda intentionally, at least. Like someone else has a propaganda or whatever, a disinformation, then when I share it, I'm sharing misinformation. So I think that's something that happens with it. But
mhm, mhm,
yeah.
mhm.
Um I would so there's two things that come to mind. I'm going to try to make it very quick. So one I think is like with Project Hail Mary, even if it's kind of like this marketing for science of like, no, 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 can we please like market like fund it because it's good. I think something that is very valuable about it is that it gives you a future of science that you're on board with. So as a person, it is important for me to be able to see a future that I'm on board with. It's like one of the problem I think with climate change is that it's hard for us to imagine, like, it's always dystopian futures. Like I can't imagine a future where things are working and things are good. And to me there is something where like, there was like a, I think, a Chinese astronaut and a Russian astronaut and this American astronaut, and they all went to space and they all like sacrifice to come up with this thing. So I'm like, oh, this is in a way kind of like beautiful. It's a future
Mhm.
that I imagine and I hope would happen. Um,
Mhm.
the other side of it is like, and I think in a voice message you were like telling me about this too, when there's like wrong science or things that like break that disbelief, whether you're a scientist and you know it or you don't know it, and later is like everyone is like, that centrifuge was not balanced. Like everyone is talking about the centrifuge not being balanced.
Yeah. Yeah. He put both of them on one side of the centrifuge. I'm like, that I literally turned to my husband in the movie theater. I'm like, "That's not balanced. That's not how," like Oh.
Um, but if anything came out of that was that so many of us now know that the centrifuge should be balanced. I did not care about it. I didn't know about it. And now I've seen so much. I'm like, okay, the centrifuge needs to be balanced. I get it. Like it has to be here and here or whatever. Um, so actually my dissertation, there's a part of my dissertation work that is on how scientists use pop culture references to build a mutual ground with scientists. And one of the functions that kept coming up and repeating is when they debunk bad science. And debunking bad science in movies provides for such an amazing opportunity to get people to be surprised, and surprise causes curiosity, and curiosity gets people to ask questions, and then you get people to be like guessing and stuff, and then voila, you just like taught them something very interesting and cool. Like one of our scientists, Andrew, at Adler Planetarium, people, this was like when A Martian came out, and like people would be like, what did you think of Martian, was it accurate or not? And he would be like, there's like this one scene, it's like a perfect in science, there's this one scene that is like really really wrong. You want to guess what it is? And it's like the sandstorm on Mars that causes the whole inciting incident. It's like Mars has a very thin atmosphere. We don't have sandstorms on it, right? Like when you have it, it wouldn't even move a coat rack. So to this day, I remember that, right? To forever, I think we will all remember this centrifuge thing. So there's like something about like, yes, make your science accurate and stuff, but like don't completely hate on it because there's like so many learning opportunities.
Yeah, for sure, and I think that feeds into and that is a good circle back to, like, my initial hate of just, like, bringing in science content creators, but also in the development of the author writing this book and then the directors, like, and people producing this movie is that, like, at the base of it, it's still rooted in, like, real science, but, it's only to, like in order to build this fantastical world is where, like, the disbelief and, like, the fiction comes into play. But I think it's a really interesting that for a marketing tactic when we think about, like, who the messenger is that Project Hail Mary marketing team was smart in the sense of, like, "Okay, let's bring science creators to, like, bring him into our press release circle
Mhm.
and get to interview them at the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory," or again, like, get to interview Dr. Becky, who's an actual physicist, to kind of, like, break down those moments of, like, what is rooted in truth and what is just like a bend of what science could potentially do
Mhm.
that uh and that's what makes science fiction movies such a large genre and admired genre.
For sure, for sure, for sure. I think that sounds like a great closing thought for this
Mhm.
episode, but we're gonna have like a mini, maybe new section. We're just experimenting with it where we're gonna do like a very few bullet points of like SciComm updates of things you should check out, and why we think you should probably check it out. Stephanie, do you wanna get us started? Should I get us started?
You get us started as I look for what I'm supposed to talk about.
Well, so the first thing that, by the way, a lot of like our updates, we get it from the SciCommers newsletter, which we highly recommend you subscribing to it. So one of the things I was just like going through the newsletter, one of the things that really stood out to me was a post from SciComm Bytes. It was called "Can AI Make Science More Trustworthy?" Because it both talks about AI, which I'm like, yeah, what's the deal with AI and how can we think about it in terms of science communication, but also trust is another topic. So two things about that. One is SciComm Bytes is a very good blog that you can go to read about some of like the summaries of the newest science communication research coming out. It's a great place to do that. And what I appreciated about this article was like, first of all, like attention span, very short. It was like very concise and everything. And it was this general idea that when you use AI as a scientist to help you basically make your science talk or your science like abstract or anything like easier to read, the audience reads it and is like, oh, actually, I trust the scientist more because we know there is research that basically says that if I understand what you're saying, if what you're saying is like is like kind of like a simplification, not simplification, but it's like more simple to understand, then I'm gonna trust you more. My question was, and I don't know, and I don't think that they studied that part, is like, what if the audience knew that AI was used to write this simplified version or easier to read version? Because I think anytime AI comes in, there might be, or I might be wrong. Ooh, surprise me, research. Because
Yeah.
I'm interesting.
Yeah, I would also incline like, I remember recently, like, even in comments when people, like, post something and then once they find out it's, like, AI, people in the comments are just like, "Oh, why did you do that?" You know? So, there's gonna be
Right.
heavy opinions on it. So, that's interesting that they didn't think about that, but again, maybe it's just, like, a future study that they're doing.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, yeah,
Alright, second SciComm update that we have is that Ray and I did a pre-recording for an online Science of SciComm's e-summit that our friend, the Eco Well, is presenting. So it's May 3rd from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. It is free. And then Ray and I recorded a session called SciComm on social media and the attention economy. So for listeners that listen to us babble, you're probably gonna hear a lot of about the same things, but, I guess recommend it to any other of your SciComm friends or students who are just looking for a free resource into just hearing other experts in the science communication space. There is a beauty angle, but she does a great Jen, the creator, does a great job at trying to find just, like, balanced science communication practitioners to kind of, like, give some input into industry and science communication practices.
yeah, for sure. And some of our friends like Matteo Fasciani, who studies misinformation, is going to be on it. I think Emily Grasley is going to be a speaker. So a lot of awesome names to follow.
Yes. One that I'm actually interested in is, like, what's her name? Oh, I guess there's, like, she's on a panel, but her name is the hydroxide food science. Do you follow her?
Oh, is she the one that's like like every she talks about like very blank, like dry humor.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yes. Just
love her
like,
stuff.
"No, no, 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 that's not what science says," like, I love her shit. She's so funny. So I'm excited to look at that session.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um, and then the last thing was just, like, a article that's soon to be published, that I'm on the lookout for. Wait, I haven't read it, but it's gonna be published soon on Frontiers, which is the artistic expression of original research. Art-based science communication improves the public's relation to science and scientists. Um, I'll put this in the show notes, but in researching what the article is about, it propped up an essay written by our friend from Civic Media from Funwell called Examining Science and Art Collaborations Through a Social Psychology Lens Reveals the Need for Third Spaces. And why this piqued my interest was mostly because right now one of my clients runs a program at Vanderbilt called VI4 Art Lab, and essentially they take undergraduate students who are either artists or scientists that have experience, like, that love making art, and then they work with the editorial team of journals to create cover art for their journals. And so I'm literally, like, editing a coffee book, having all these journals, so that's what's kind of on my mind, but I sent it to Ray to kind of
Yeah.
skim through the essay.
Yeah, yeah. I one of the things I appreciated about it, and the reason why I would suggest you read the full paper, full article, is I think it was like kind of challenging the relationships that scientists and artists have. So it was talking about like there's like sci art, and there is like some artists that sometimes have residencies in labs. Like, why don't scientists have like a residency in an art studio? Why is it always like artists that go to them? Or there was this like quotes of interviews of like, yeah, like when I go to scientists, there's always this like kind of like, oh, you're here to work with me, you'll be assisting me. And there's this like
Mhm.
perception that art is usually used with science to promote science. And one of the first things that comes to my mind is one of my friend Chelsea. She has this organization, Chalk Riot, and now that's oh my god, I forgot. Chelsea, don't hate me. Ground something. I'm gonna attach the name. But it does like a lot of fantastic work using like art and combines it with science, especially for like sustainability, climate change mitigation, and all of that. And one of the projects that they used to work on, ground shift. Okay, ground shift. And one of the projects they used to work on with Chuck Riot was that, you know, the pedestrian zones, like they would have like they make art, they make street art. And one of the things they saw was that when you have these street arts, like it literally, this is like a study done, it literally like brings down the rate of like accidents. I think it might be because like, you know, cars go, pedestrian lines, you might like not even notice it or like you ignore it, but like a beautiful art, it just like gets your attention. So you probably stop and you hit fewer people. And when I think of that, I'm like, that's not art in service of this to promote a science. That's art saving lives. That's the thing. Like in this case, the science artist or anyone, this is like a person using art to save lives. It's not a promotion. It's not all these ways we're thinking about it. So I thought for me, it was an interesting way to just like completely think differently about like these relationships. And they were talking about building these third spaces for sci art to exist based on its own new norms and rules and identities and everything. So I highly recommend you all read it.
Let us know if you like this little update, but for now, if you have any gossip or anything that you saw that you wanna talk about, if it's good or bad SciComm, send it to us at SciComm Hotline or DM us on Instagram at SciComm Hotline. But yeah, this was, like, interesting conversation. Sorry, I went off on a tangent in the middle with my shitty stories about the space station. But yeah, another fun conversation, Ray, and I'll see you next time.
Bye. See you.
Make my own rules, play my own games. I don't give a what you say or think or do. The way you live your life is up to you.